Leonidas Evgenides Dimitriades, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Your Holiness, Deputy Minister of Education, Lifelong Learning and Religious Affairs, General Secretary, distinguished guests. As Sir John Southton mentioned yesterday, if you have nothing important to say, say nothing. So this is what I feel as far as I'm concerned. It is a great pleasure and honor to welcome you at Eugenides Foundation premises. Our foundation is a public benefit foundation whose aim is to support the scientific and technical education of Greek youth, and that purpose we are trying to serve over the last 50 years. Eugenides Foundation was established in 1956 in execution of the will of the national benefactor Eugene Eugenides. Eugene Eugenides, being a great patriot and a visionary, was the man who has foreseen that post-war Greece was in a great need of thorough educated scientists and sufficiently trained technical experts, what we call vocational education today, which is a little bit not yet taken to the right dimension, the basis of our society, in order to set up the post-World War II Greece. In order to contribute to such idea, Eugene Eugenides donated after his death a great part of his wealth to the promotion of the technical and vocational training of Greek youth. Initially, Eugenides Foundation was involved in setting up the first technical library, which today have developed to one of the most important technical libraries in Greece. It has a visitation of 30,000 persons per annum. Then it developed what was, as far as we are concerned, the most important aspect, our educational initiative regarding publications. We have been publishing many titles, and for many decades, Eugenides Foundation was producing the books for the technical education. Thereafter, we continue our strategic alliance with Merchant Marine Ministry at the time for the nautical academies and different ministries and institutions. And so far, we have distributed 45 million books. I consider that this is less known, but quite important as far as we're concerned. For what we're more known is our planetarium. Our planetarium, which was first built 1966, and then 2003, we opened the doors for our new planetarium, the digital planetarium, who is attaining a visitation of almost 400,000 persons per annum, of which half are students, almost. At the same time, we are running for the sixth year, the technical exhibition in collaboration with La Villette of Paris, which is a mini science center with different topics, last and not least being biotechnology, which is very much in the different aspects, the science in which physics, chemistry, mathematics, and one way all what we're talking about is entailed. And we wanted to create this sensitivity as from the early years of students. At the same time, we have the scholarships, 250,000 per annum. We're granting to National Polytechnic School, National Technical University of Athens, another 150,000 with the Merchant Marine Ministry for the education of persons who are involved in the maritime field, and they are members of the administration. We've granted different donations in different occasions, and then we organize events like the present one. And of course, the question of greening humanity, it is a very important topic. Actually, it's one of the first times that I heard, I mean, we all know what we're talking about, And I think, Emilios, that that was a very exciting title, because when I put Greening Humanity, it came our seminar. So this signifies the importance that Manchester University and Eugenides Foundation are giving in this topic, because over the past few decades, the world environment, physical, social, economical factors, they are going through major changes. Some are quick and easy to understand, others are slower, but it signifies that so many things happen around us. Some are the result of questionable decision-making at all levels. Others are the result of over or underestimation of our abilities as a human race. And yet others are due to random events. One thing is certain though, our lives and the environment in which we live become even more complex, thus making it even more difficult to grasp the potential consequence of our actions. Globalization, personally, I'm very skeptical about globalization. There are a lot of good things, but there are many things that still have not paid the bill. What personally I understand more than globalization, much more than the economical terms, is that the way that things are going, the consequences of decision and actions of one person in whichever part of the planet may affect the totality of us. So we're in an era of holistic approach. Along these lines, the dialogue between scientists and society, stakeholders, is a very important part, and particularly, first of all, we have each one to start from our house, and our house is Greece, and Greece is a part of Europe, so we have very pro-European attitude, and of course, Europe is one part of the globe. So, in this chain of interactivity, we welcome initiatives like green economy, sustainability. This is the most important word, and as Professor Salston mentioned yesterday, it is our duty as generation, because what we are administrators. We're entrusted things, and we have to entrust something more than what we're entrusted to our children. Our children have to be better than us. And the tragedy of my generation, I'm at 50s, I'm 52, is that unfortunately in my own country, my own generation is responsible for not giving a bright future to our children. So it is our task altogether to try to make it up. We might lose a battle, we should not lose the war. And togetherness, this is the only way to go through. With an open mind, an open heart, and this is all what I wanted to say. For us, it's a great honor and pleasure. We believe in togetherness, we believe in strategic alliances between institutions. For us, this event is not an event of communications, or is not an event of trying to illustrate something more than it is. The essence is that it has to be a small part of a chain of things what's so important for the future of our children. So we cordially welcome you, and it's going to be a great honor and pleasure to welcome Mr. Panaretos to tell us a few words. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that, but I need some water. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and participants of this meeting, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation to address your meeting today, and to congratulate them not only for this meeting, but also for the important cooperation and alliance they have created, and by using this alliance in promoting many aspects of science and life that are important today. The tasks that you have set for yourselves in this meeting are formidable, but of course they are at the epicenter of much of what is at stake today in terms of the environment and economic development. The themes to be debated are highly interconnected, and I'm very pleased to see in your program that you are going back to first principles to untangle their complex dependencies, keeping the whole in mind and not over-focusing on the particular. In a sense, speaking as a mathematician, you are taking head-on an optimization problem that is highly constrained. And this can sometimes be a blessing, and others can be a curse. It often happens that such problems do not admit solutions. Other times, if we settle for the best we can get, the many constraints naturally reveal a small set of feasible solutions, or at least promising directions. I hope that you will be able to identify some of the latter. It was stimulating to read through your conference program. I do not wish to take much of your time, and I would only like to briefly share some of my immediate reactions to the key words and phrases I read. Some layman's ramblings rather than well-formulated theses. First keyword, ethics. It's very pleasing to see the emphasis placed on the notion of ethics. Ethics seem to be confounded with many of the issues related to development and the green economy these days. They are, however, a relative notion. It is simply our current perception of good and bad within a context. And the evolution of ethics follows the evolution of context. Consider the fundamental example of the value of human life. Less than 200 years ago, many considered it acceptable to talk of human beings as objects, thinking of human life as a mere expendable commodity. Today, the whole world has been biting their fingernails as a very expensive and sophisticated rescue mission was underway to free 33 Chilean miners from the depth of the earth. What is self-evident today would have seemed preposterous 200 years ago. When it comes to climate change and sustainable development, the question that comes to mind is, will ethics catch up fast enough with the change of context? Or we first have to witness the consequences and then reconsider our principles?